all this, we reached out to Tom Grundy. He's the editor-in-chief of the Hong Kong Free Press, an independent English news source. He started by setting the scene in the courtroom at the sentencing.
There was high security, dozens of armed police outside, dozens of Hong Kongers queuing sometimes for days, and in the cold for the public gallery. Lai and his co-defendants were very stoic during the sentencing in court. It was over in 10 minutes, but in a press briefing later on, the judges said that they had no doubt that Lai was the mastermind of the conspiracies and therefore deserved a heavier sentence. He was arrested in 2020 in the wake of the 2019 unrest. And despite that being a leaderless movement, Beijing, saw him as an enemy, a figurehead of the opposition movement. And basically now he's likely going to be 94 years old if he does get out in 2044. So, we're not seeing headlines today about the maximum sentence, which is life. But it does seem likely, of course, that Lai may not be coming out. He is, of course, in very poor health too.
What has been the reaction so far in Hong Kong to the sentence and the possibility that Jimmy Lai will die in jail?
To be honest, the reactions among the establishment here have been celebratory, and elsewhere it's muted. There just is no criticism I'm seeing this time round in Hong Kong at all. The city's leader, John Lee, said that for sure Lai deserves his punishment after all the harm he has done, and he slammed his evil deeds. And that was echoed by many pro-Beijing figures and one of the top cops who welcomed the court's decision, saying that authorities are still investigating some other matters, so this may not even be the end of it. But, I did contact the Hong Kong Journalists Association, the local union. They said that they were not able to comment. But plenty of criticism from abroad, from press freedom NGOs. And the EU, Australia, UK, and other Western states have also condemned this.
Evil deeds, according to authorities in Hong Kong. They've also described Jimmy Lai as the mastermind behind the mass protests that swept Hong Kong in 2019, protests against the government in Beijing. Basically, what exactly was Jimmy Lai convicted of?
Well, he was accused of conspiracy to commit sedition and collude with foreign forces, said to have invited the US and others to impose sanctions under the guise of fighting for freedom and democracy. He denied doing so after the 2020 security law was enacted. But prosecutors said it didn't matter as he created a false impression of China. They were looking at nearly 200 of his opinion pieces, as well as the pro-democracy Apple Daily, which certainly was, a grubby tabloid a lot of the time, but it also did investigative journalism during this golden age of newspapers in Hong Kong. But it was also very firmly sided with the democracy movement and even printed protest posters at some point. But 200 police raided it in 2020. They seized the assets and its last copy sold 1 million in hours.
Wow. So, Tom, as editor-in-chief at the Hong Kong Free Press, you know the stifling effect of Beijing and the national security law on free expression in Hong Kong. But from your point of view as a journalist, what does this sentence tell us further about the current state of press freedom in Hong Kong?
The changes were already baked in. When he was arrested and Apple Daily was raided, we knew where this was going years ago and took note. And for many Hong Kongers, they've seen the security law pan out over the last few years with examples made of people a lot closer to home than Jimmy, folks who've just been jailed over slogans, T-shirts or speech online, over 60 civil society groups disappearing in recent years. So folks already know the process is not slowing down, it's going in one direction. I often say, it's national security for breakfast, lunch and dinner, because there are thousands of bureaucrats and millions of dollars dedicated to ensuring resistance to Beijing's rule is stamped out. As for us, we continue because we still reckon we can do more on the ground than out. We can go to the courts, legislature and press conferences and ask tough questions in ways that we wouldn't as a news team if we left. And we certainly don't have those privileges, as journalists if we were in mainland China. So many have said press freedom today, is now dead. But we're still around and there is a little room for independent journalism. But of course, one has to tread extremely carefully nowadays.
Does international pressure have any bearing in cases like this? Like, what kind of leverage do foreign governments have?
Well, foreign governments have mostly been putting out statements, and the likes of Keir Starmer of the UK last week brought up the issue apparently with China's Xi Jinping. But China and Hong Kong are incredibly defensive about any criticism of this judicial process, and it just seems to fall on deaf ears. You know, he has long been considered one of the biggest enemies, of China as far as they're concerned. And although this is not a life sentence, it seems likely he will die behind bars. One tangible thing that has emerged today is that the UK has expanded its so-called lifeboat scheme, a visa program for those with the post-colonial British national overseas passport, to bring their children over, and basically more people will be eligible to move to the UK now that they've expanded that today.
Yeah, who exactly is eligible now for those new pathways to the UK, that visa? And what's been the reaction from Beijing for that kind of intervention?
The timing was quite deliberate. Previously, it was not always possible to bring all of the children of passport holders, British national overseas passport holders, to the UK. So that's kind of been corrected now. Almost 200,000 odd have benefited from this since it was brought in 5-ish years ago in wake of the security law. So this will sort of patch one of those policy gaps and allow thousands more Hong Kongers to move to the UK should they wish.
Tom, how is Jimmy Lai's media legacy being discussed now in Hong Kong, if at all, especially among the young?
The consequences under the security law of speaking out in support or criticizing, this ruling, I think would be quite clear, often not spelt out exactly in law. But we have seen the likes of the Journalists Association just a few weeks ago remove a statement that criticized the verdict in this case. And this time round, we are not seeing any civil society groups I know of, and nothing really online in terms of criticism within Hong Kong's borders. So much of it nowadays is done by dissident or self-exiled Hong Kongers who have left. But absolutely, it's muted here in Hong Kong.
As for Jimmy Lai's sentence, Tom, is there any realistic path for appeal?
He has 28 days to lodge an appeal. His defense counsel didn't comment on that today. Yeah, not clear at the moment.
That's Tom Grundy. He's the editor-in-chief and co-founder of the Hong Kong Free Press, an independent English media outlet in Hong Kong.